The fact that they did the all hands as an open forum, I thought was a brilliant move. So when I used to work at the company, these were behind the scenes. Nobody saw them as employees. What I remember from those meetings, and I think was captured very well in this first one they did publicly, is if you worked at the company, you were psyched after you came out. You're like, yo, I'm ready. Let's go. And that's why they do it. Because you get beat down for 89 days. And on the 90th day, they're like, remember why you're here?
Welcome to the Gigacast. I'm your host, Gav, here today with Sawyer, Omar, and Farzad. And today we are going to be talking about Tesla's all-hands meeting. There was so much covered, and plus several other amazing tidbits coming down the line here, including some pieces on Optimus progress, as well as Cybervan, and so much more. Let's get right into the thick of it. Excited to welcome back Omar from a beautiful wedding in Mexico, it looked like. Omar, why don't you kick us off with your thoughts on this Tesla all hands meeting that we had?
Actually, before you even go in, Omar, you look pretty tan. What happened?
Yeah, Mexico will do that to you. But yeah, I was really excited to see the all hands meeting. I think Elon really needed to come out. He needed to show his face, talk to the employees about everything that's going on, and the public as well. Of course, it had to be while I was out of the country, but I had to tune in and watch it anyway. And I think he struck the right tone. I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in all the craziness that's happening and forget what Tesla's all about. And I think he did a really great job of focusing attention back on what Tesla's really doing, laying out sort of a new twist on the mission that incorporates Optimus and FSD, talking about sustainable abundance. The fact that Optimus is already starting production. I thought it was really good in terms of just focusing us on what really matters for the company.
Yeah. I thought you sort of hit it in the nail there, is the amount of noise and chaos that's been around the story for the last, what feels like 1,000 years, but it's really a year and a half, let's call it, or even less than
1,000 years.
1,000 years. Yeah. 1,000 years. It was huge. I do think what's the underpinning there is, if I look at the analytics of my channel specifically, when I cover Tesla very heavily, and I don't know if this is because of that meeting, but I think the undercurrent of whatever's going on with Tesla specifically, I'm noticing a lot more attention than in the last couple of years being paid attention to the Tesla story specifically. Just my view numbers are significantly higher on just Tesla content. And the mix of people watching it is, it's more broad. It sort of has brought in a new crew of people that typically don't follow the story. And what's exciting about the all hands is that now that you have all this attention on you, either good or bad, the fact that they did the all hands as an open forum, I thought was a brilliant move. So when I used to work at the company, these were behind the scenes. Nobody saw them as employees. And what I remember from those meetings, and I think was captured very well in this first one they did publicly, is if you worked at the company, you were psyched after you came out. You're like, yo, I'm ready. Let's go. And that's why they do it. Because you get beat down for 89 days. And on the 90th day, they're like, remember why you're here? It helped kind of get you. How often
did they have them when you were at the company?
Quarterly.
Yeah, that's why.
Quarterly. Yeah. But this one was very unique because Elon laid out a sort of a master plan for whatever you call it, sort of that next leg that also brings in all the other work that they've done. And they've also said they added the word sustainable, what was it? Sustainable abundance. Yeah. Right. So it's like, it's very obvious that where the company has started with their mission and where they're going to end up, that had to be brought into that mission statement. Because otherwise, you're sort of abandoning your original statement of advancing the world to sustainable transportation, sustainable energy generation. And so the sustainable piece has to be a part of it, right? It's very exciting. It's very exciting. And I think it has opened the door for a lot of regular folks that perhaps are not giant tech geek nerds, Tesla people like we are, let's say. They are seeing a window into the future. And from a future perspective, it's hard to find many other companies like Tesla or like a SpaceX that are at scale and scaling, actually bringing that future forward. A lot of these future-based companies are more nascent or more new, and they're trying to ramp, they're trying to scale, they're sort of just getting started. But Tesla is like this manufacturing behemoth that's going to 10x in the next 10 years, even more potentially from a production perspective. And they're bringing the future forward. So it's hard not to be excited as a person who appreciates technology, regardless of where your politics lie. I thought it was a fantastic showing of what they can do.
I think this all hands was a little bit of Elon reading the room. I think there were a lot of calls from both Tesla investors and non-investors being like, where is Elon? Is he working at Tesla still? Like, where is he? Because we see all these photos and videos of him at the White House hanging with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, whatnot, all these events, but not at Tesla. So I think this was Elon, I believe this because typically, and you can correct me, Farzad, typically, like, I think employees are notified a few days, if not a week or two beforehand, before the actual all hands meeting occurs. Correct. And from my understanding, this was a very last minute. No employees really knew that it was happening. And they just got an email saying, hey, this is going to happen at 8:30 Central Time. And it's going to be live streamed on X, or you can click this link and view it that way.
Yeah.
And so that tells me, okay, this is Elon going out of his way to remind people why Tesla exists, their mission, what we're currently working on, what we've recently accomplished, and some of the things that we're going to be working on throughout the rest of the year, and of course, in years in the future.
Yeah.
And this gave it. I like this setting because it kind of reminded me of old school Elon presentations. It's more of like a small, intimate setting. He got the red drapes behind him. It's not just big production. It's very, like you said, these meetings are typically confidential. And I've been wanting Tesla to do one of these meetings publicly for a long time, because this is really the only opportunity we get where like we can listen in to actual employees ask Elon directly a question, and we can just sort of listen in, which is great. Yeah. So it was a unique opportunity for investors to sort of get an inside look at. And I believe this was the first all hands meeting at Giga Texas as well. So I thought it was a great idea on Elon's part to do it. I think investors really appreciated it. It wasn't too heavy on, new details, specific details. I think we got enough out of it that people were satisfied.
What were the biggest takeaways for you?
Yeah, so I kind of created a list of some of the biggest things that we learned that were new, at least. Few things: Tesla, the Optimus robot on a new production line at Fremont. That's their pilot line. They did the same thing with the Cybertruck. We're seeing that now. New Optimus hand with 22 degrees of freedom, up from 11, and the new forearm is now in production. Elon said that a new Cybercab is going to roll off the production line potentially every 5 seconds, which I believe the fastest time that a Tesla currently rolls off the line is 35 seconds at their Giga Shanghai factory. So huge difference.
6 seconds.
You said every 5 seconds?
Yeah, every 5 seconds. Now, this doesn't mean a car is literally being built every 5 seconds. It just means one's rolling off the line every 5 seconds. Their 4680 cell is now the lowest cost cell per kilowatt hour in the world. If that's true, that happened a lot quicker than I thought it would, because I didn't think they'd get here this quickly. So that's huge if that's true, especially because they're going to start introducing the dry cathode later this year, it sounds like, into the cells for the Cybertruck, which is only going to drop costs further. So that's hugely bullish. And then we can go through a couple other things. I don't know if you guys wanted to comment.
Well, I think the 4680 cell, being the lowest cost per kilowatt hour in the world, what's interesting there is that if you were any other cell manufacturer, you are selling it to somebody else. And so what does that mean? You're automatically giving somebody the ability to add a markup so they can have a margin. So that you have a double whammy effect with Tesla. They have the lowest one, the cheapest one. It might be by 1% or 0.5%, whatever that is. But even if they are, let's say, at the bottom of pricing, they don't have to give away any markup or margin to a manufacturer or supplier, which means that they can do two things. They can either lower the cost of their batteries, which is still going to be the largest percentage of the total cost of a vehicle by far, even into the future, because it's just that's going to be the case. That's how it works. So they can either lower the price compared to competition, or they can, depending on market demand, if there's a lot of demand for these things, then they get to keep that margin, and that margin could be anywhere between 5% to 20%, whatever that number is, right? So that's an interesting thing, because for the longest time, 4680, I mean, as people that follow Tesla very closely, 4680 has been I won't use the word disaster. It has taken a lot longer than expected to get it to where it needed to be, but you also have to keep in mind that 4680 development and ramp also happened during COVID. right? It was a 2019, 2020 project, and then we had to sort of navigate through COVID to come out of there on the other end. So
I think
it's exciting.
Getting to the dry cathode, all that was a bit much harder challenge than I thought.
Yeah.
Than I think they thought originally. It's been 4.5 years since battery day, which is crazy, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a long road.
Can you give people a little bit more color on the dry cathode and kind of what that breakthrough means?
Omar might be able to explain it better than I can. I don't know if you want to give it a go.
Yeah, essentially, the battery production process involves a wet solvent, right? So you're talking about a liquid, and you have to kind of put everything together, then put the batteries in these giant industrial dryers, which not only take up a lot of space, use a lot of energy, but they take up a lot of time too, right? It takes time to put those things in the dryer and wait for them to dry, and then you can sort of finish the cell. With the dry coating process, they essentially put this powder in this machine and it coats it dry without having to use any wet solvent. That means you can eliminate those dryers. You can have a factory that's smaller, that uses less space, that costs less, where the cells come out faster. It's a major breakthrough in cost. They've been doing too. Right. And they've been doing the anode side. They now started doing the cathode side. So this is, I think, very significant as they get this into production and get this into their vehicles. I'm not sure if I, really believe that it's the lowest cost cell in the world. That's something that seems like a pretty crazy claim. I would have expected, maybe some of the LFP chemistries would be cheaper, but maybe when they're talking about the battery production credit or something, it can meet that level. So I'd be interested to get more color in that, but it's encouraging. I've got a 4680 structural pack vehicle outside and I love it. It works great. So it's a very small percentage of their cell mix today, but I think we're going to see that continue to grow.
Yeah, no one's really been able to figure out dry cathodes before. So if this is true that Tesla's been able to figure this out and they can ramp it and scale it profitably, that's a game changer for sure.
And so the double whammy effect is cost and volume, right? So it's like the speed of cell manufacturing and how affordable it's going to be. So it's almost like it could be one of those sort of doors that open up for 10x volume production in the coming 10 years, right? With Cybercab and a cheaper vehicle and whatever. So this breakthrough had to happen for Tesla to reach their ultimate goal. They put out there a few years ago, 20 cars per year by 2030, right? Which I still, listen, a lot of people are like impossible. I'm like, yeah, 2030 may be impossible, but 2032, 2033, you never know, right? And these are the kind of breakthroughs that allow them to reach those numbers.
I do think they are on track to become one of the highest volume, if not the highest volume auto manufacturer on Earth. And the significance of this, once you know the dry anode and the dry cathode work, you have them in production in real vehicles. That means when you want to start up a new battery line to expand production, it takes less space. It takes less CapEx. You need a smaller factory, which ultimately means you can bring up more battery production lines faster. And that enables you to scale products like Cybercab faster.
Yeah. And then if you loop in the bot process with automation as well, you're now getting, the farther you go into the future, the closer you're getting to the limiting factor being materials and not labor, right? So, and somebody posted this on my X. I have this quote posted, Evan. If you want to go on my X profile, it should be like one of the last 3 posts. A quote posted somebody about why this is such a big deal for Tesla. It's like the 5th post 16 hours ago. This is something everyone misses about Tesla. It's from Mike, if you can pull that up. If you can pull up that post. The value of Optimus is not mirroring human jobs. It's parallel executing tasks. 100,000 Optimus could build a factory in a month, not 1 to 3 years. The limiting factor in the economy is scaling manufacturing and resource extraction, not labor. The limiting factor in building a factory is execution and getting materials on site, not design. Tesla should build a team for logistics and designing a house. Have the, blah, blah, blah. So it's like the example here is analogous to, say, a country like China or Japan or any other countries where they suffer, let's say, some sort of insane cataclysmic event or a natural disaster. And then they're like in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they're done building this new thing, right? That's because they just toss everything they have at the problem and then they fix it. But what does toss everything having at the problem mean? It means adding labor. And when you can manufacture labor, then that ends up not being a limiting factor anymore, right? But it's you have to make sure that robots can do those things, right? And they're only going to be for the next 5 years, they're going to be special use cases. But as they get smarter and better, that becomes so Tesla's the way people should think about Tesla long term, in my opinion, is Tesla is a company that will figure out how to get labor for manufacturing specifically to not be the limiting factor. That's the best way to think about the company.
Since we're talking Optimus, I would like to get your guys' thoughts on Optimus being displayed. Was it on Capitol Hill, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thought that was pretty interesting. It's the
really
first time I've done that.
In what capacity it's being displayed. If it's literally just like it is in all the Tesla stores, just sort of a standing display model, or if they're actually going to show it off in any type of way. I don't know the details.
I think that's a huge deal regardless. Omar, did you want to go first?
Yeah, well, I don't necessarily care that much about the Capitol Hill thing. I think it's cool that you see the government looking at innovation more and being pro-innovation rather than seeing big tech companies as just the enemy. Because I think technology is a really important driving force for progress. But what I think was a really potentially significant announcement is the fact that they've started pilot production in Fremont. And I think the learnings as they start production and accelerate production, I mean, this is a milestone that we've really been waiting for, along with the new hands, towards actually, having thousands of these things walking around the factory. I mean, that's just crazy to imagine. Thousands of Optimus robots, and that's what they're planning to do before the end of this year.
I think Tesla, it kind of seems like they've been keeping a lot of their Optimus progress sort of close to the vest a little bit. I remember the last major update we probably got was the Gen 2, which was, I think it was in December of 2023 or maybe early 24. But like they've had this next generation hand with 22 degrees of freedom, this new forearm, but we don't really know anything about it. We haven't seen any up close videos of it. So I wonder if this is Tesla sort of protecting their IP a little bit. If they don't want anyone else copying them, they feel like they have something really special here and they put it into production. They know it works, but they don't want to fully unveil it to the world yet. Sort of interesting.
I think that's a very good call, especially if you look around and sort of listen to all the different VCs and all the different startups that are coming up. There's so much human or robot competition now. It's hard to tell who's going to win, right? Excuse me. It's hard to tell who's going to win, but I think it's smart for Tesla to do that. I will say from like the bot being at Capitol Hill, Omar, you said it's, you kind of focus on the production more. I actually think the Capitol Hill breakthrough, like showing the bot at Capitol Hill, is a gigantic deal. And the reason why, in my opinion, is if you think about what's going to happen to labor in the next 5, 10, 20 years, the way the labor is going to shift from human to robot and digital robot and AI, whatever you want to call it, is going to be one of the most fundamental shifts we're ever going to have, we would have as a species for like in history, right? And one of the things to ensure society can absorb that disruption is to ensure government understands what is happening and at least have the conversations about, hey, what does this do? Oh, I should probably think about this. Oh, wait, this is happening sooner than I thought. What should I do from a policy perspective? What should I do from a safety net perspective? What should I do from an incentive perspective, a regulation perspective, a trade perspective, right? It starts, it gets these conversations started. So even though the technology is a train that's never going to stop, the impacts to society are going to be very fundamental and disruptive. And so I think having that conversation starting the conversation by just showing that in Capitol Hill is actually a gigantic deal to ensure society is actually ready to absorb this, because it's coming, right? Like with the previous administrations, if you remember, sort of listening to the hearings they had about that Facebook thing, nobody really even knew what the internet, how it worked or Facebook worked or anything. Now I think Omar's point is excellent, and is now we have an administration that actually is excited about technology and wants to harness technology. But in the same token, we have to make sure we have people in government that fully understand what's coming so that society is best equipped to handle that and really, so all of us can win instead of a few people winning.
Do you think we're going to see a bit of a flip from what we saw in the past? I feel like where and people can watch back some of the Zuckerberg hearings and other stuff like that, where maybe a few years ago, if they were to bring a robot to Capitol Hill, you have, I think, a lot of the more like traditional Republican senators being like, what is this? I don't want this in my house. I don't want this in my life, taking over. And now, because of this gigantic shift, you're going to kind of just see the Democratic Party play that role, and a lot of the Republicans being like, let's go technology.
This is all just stupid politics. Like Elon is obviously having a massive outsized influence on the Republican Party and their view and opinion of technology, clearly. Because I don't think these people would have been all that interested in Teslas or robotics or Starlink as much as before. But now they are
the biggest donor.
That certainly helps. But like all this stuff was amazing a couple years ago when the Democrats loved it and we all loved it. It's like they're only now just opening their eyes because I feel like it's partly politically convenient for them to. But I don't know how genuine it is, but nonetheless, it's happening. So that's great. That's great.
Yeah. And, I think there is some element of politics to it, but it is also kind of just a bipartisan question. What does the world look like after all of this? Is 100%. It more like a Terminator type situation, or is it more of like a Star Wars type situation, right? So I think Elon actually got a really interesting question about this at the all hands. Someone said, hey, I'm working in casting or something like that. What does this mean for me? And I thought Elon had a great line, which is everybody gets promoted to manager, right? So now you're managing these robots. And I think ultimately it is abundance. He explained it really well. If people can have more, can do more, because we have these robots sort of working for us, we're acting as the manager. That's an outcome that I think is going to be beneficial for everybody. But it's tricky and it's natural that people are going to have some trepidation. It's certainly going to cause a lot of disruption, but it's a $1 trillion market. Everybody is getting into it. Everybody's interested in it. And I do think that is part of the reason for the secrecy. It kind of reminds me of Apple in the Steve Jobs days. Other companies that need to raise money, you see them putting out a lot of marketing videos. Tesla can afford to keep their cards close to their chest because what does it really benefit them to give a deep dive into everything they're working on and let the competitors see what they're doing?
Yeah, but I do think I don't want to take us in a rabbit hole. But I just want to throw this out there is Elon's comment of, well, everybody is now a manager is correct, but it also what is also true that not every person that knows how to do that job today knows how to be a manager of a fleet. And so if you take the Pareto principle, 20% of those people will probably transition very well. The other 80% are going to struggle. And so the question becomes, what are we doing from a society perspective? Or is the market open enough to create jobs for those 80% of people that probably won't transition as well as the other 20% to have somewhere where they can actually generate revenue, generate income for themselves, be a meaningful contributor to society, to have fulfillment, most importantly, to be able to provide for their family. These are the questions that government has to figure out how to solve for. And this is why I'm so excited about having an administration that actually is partnered with a group of people that are bringing this forward. Like, the one saying I have is, would you rather have a government that doesn't understand it and we're for sure going to go to hell? Or would you rather have a little bit of a window that's open with people that understand how this works and have a chance to not go to hell, right? Maybe they just take everything for themselves. Okay, that's a risk. But guess what? The other risk is like, we for sure go to hell. For sure go to hell. So it's like, okay, we need to have people that actually know what they're talking about, helping us.
And honestly, the technology is moving so fast that if they don't start thinking about this, it's going to be too late. So
1000%.
And it's interesting with cars. We have a driver's license. You can get your driver's license suspended. Am I going to need some type of license or permit to send my robot out in the world? How exactly does that all work? It's kind of a Wild West right now. It's a free for all. And yeah, it definitely is time to start thinking about this because it's coming fast.
Yeah.
I remember I was watching an Elon interview 10 years ago and I physically watched it in 2015. And someone asked him about AI back then. And the government's role, and like, are we going to need regulations? And Elon was like, the way he described it was so scary to me at the time that I was like, wow, maybe this is something we should take really seriously. And obviously no one has really, for the most part. But only now am I starting to feel like, okay, people are really opening their eyes to what this technology can do. I think ChatGPT was a huge catalyst for that. But also I think Elon is having a huge impact on Republicans thinking of technology, but also the importance of, we need to set up committees and certain advisory boards or whatever to sort of oversee this stuff, because it is, as you say, Omar, going to completely change the way we live. So let's not fall behind and let China and other countries get ahead of us on this. Let's be a leader in this space.
Yeah. Can I make a crazy prediction?
Oh, please.
I'm probably going to be wrong here. By 2040, the United States will have a universal basic income, and Musk industry will provide 50% of the funding for that universal basic income through taxation.
Will there be
Definitely
more
a wild prediction?
Will there be more humans or Optimuses in America?
By 2040?
Yeah.
More humans.
Yeah.
More humans.
But by 2050, more robots for sure.
For sure.
For sure.
Not even a prediction.
Am I going to be
sure.
alive by then? Yeah. How old am I going to be? Like 65 or something?
I'll be around to see by then.
Not even that far
Oh,
off.
yeah, we'll have everything.
It's crazy to me because you keep mentioning the administration and having this administration. And I just was wild. I saw somebody wrote it out yesterday. They were like, people don't realize that we're only 2 months in to this administration. There's still 1,400 plus days left of this current administration. So it's crazy how fast things are moving. Just because we're on the Optimus topic, I feel like I've seen a lot of other robots coming across the timeline. I believe Figure is one of them, and a couple others. Is there anything you guys are seeing out there that's intriguing to you?
Figure takes the opposite approach, and that they let us know of every single little improvement that they have. I think that's probably for like marketing purposes because they want to raise money and all that. But yeah, there's a couple other ones I'm forgetting the names of though. Anyway,
yeah, there's 1X, which I think is an interesting company. Unitree and other Chinese companies. Boston Dynamics put out a great video recently about their robot walking using reinforcement learning that was trained by some partner company.
The walking at the gate looks very human-like compared to
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think the key separator here, and this is something Omar's brought up multiple times before, it's the brain. The brain is by far the most important part. So you can have the most physically impressive robot of all time, but if it's not capable of dynamically adjusting itself to the task at hand and the number of tasks it can do, its ability to generate income will go down dramatically. Whereas if you have a robot that's pretty good from a physical perspective, but it can manipulate the world as good as a human can, that robot is worth 1 million times more than the other robot because of how fungible it is and how well it can complete the tasks. Those are the two things that are truly going to drive the robot. You could almost have like a top 50% physical robot, like actuators, materials, battery life. But if you have a top 1% brain, that robot will always beat the top 1% robot physical, but the top 50% brain. 100% of the time, the other, because it's like, okay, well, I have to swap it out every 2 years. Okay, who cares? Swap it out every 2 years. At least you can do every job imaginable, right?
Is that agency or something higher?
I mean, we can think of it as agency. For me, it's like just some sort of brain, a neural net that you teach it how to do something and it knows how to do it. It doesn't have to be self-aware. It just needs to work so that it knows how to manipulate the real world. I don't know if it requires consciousness. This is why this arena that we're in now is so interesting. Is like, do you require consciousness and self-awareness or some form of thing to be able to complete human tasks? My gut says no. My gut says it's just hopefully not. It's just some very advanced form of a baby AI. And if that's the case, then we probably get there a lot quicker than people think. And that's my thesis. My thesis is that, dude, if you can teach a car how to drive with other humans on the road with just cameras, okay, you can probably do a lot. You can do a lot.
Speaking of which, Elon liked that little clip of you talking about FSD on the Chinese road with no barriers and everything. I saw you shared that one out. That was cool.
Yeah, I mean, those Chinese folks are wild, man.
I know they're braver than me. I mean, they're really putting it through some crazy stuff. But yeah, I totally agree with Farzad. It's all about the brain. people forget we've known how to make humanoid robot hardware for a long time.
Yeah.
But we just didn't have anything to do with it because you had to have a human control that robot body essentially, or program in a few tasks. It just wasn't that useful. What's really gotten people interested in humanoid robotics again is really the ChatGPT moment. It's, oh, when you look at this, we are starting to figure out how to build that synthetic brain. And if you can put that in a robot, there's something that is going to be an incredibly general product that can do a lot of different things that are useful to people. And it's really the reason why I'm bullish on Tesla's efforts in humanoid robotics. They've trained a model that drives me around. I get in my car, I push a button, it takes me there. Whether it's rainy, whether it's foggy, whether it's sunny, whatever crazy stuff people do, it gets me there. They've proven that they can train a model that works in the real world. So that, I think, will be what determines the winner more than anything. I mean, hardware is important too. The hardware and software have to go together. But really, the company that can build that best robot brain is going to win. If you have one robot that's smart, that can think about things without you even saying it, and then you've got another robot that's dropping things, that's falling over, that's, tearing a hole in your furniture, that's going to be much less valuable to you.
Kind of want to pull us back to the all hands meeting for a second, Sawyer, and talk about the tease from employees about getting these Cybercab rides started in just a couple of months here in June?
Yeah, so I know Farzad and I had a discussion on the last pod on whether we thought the robotaxi rides in June would be Cybercabs or not. And I was firmly in the no Cybercab camp. I think Farzad, you felt like it could be a Cybercab.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
you owe me some money. I'm kidding.
So there's a few like employees last night. Like one of them said, still doubting that this can happen in June. Think again. And another was like, hi to anyone that doubted us launching Cybercab starting this June. Thanks, Austin City. I don't know if that actually means they're going to start offering Cybercab rides or not through like prototypes or whatnot, or if this is still going to be Model Ys. I'm still leaning towards Model Y, but if it is Cybercab, that's hugely bullish in my opinion. Because I think Laura said a couple of weeks ago that they were going to start prototype builds or early builds this summer at Giga Texas. So maybe it's happening sooner than we thought.
Yeah, this was a really interesting post. I mean, I was literally on a discussion in Spaces just a few minutes before this tweet came out. And I was saying, yeah, I don't know if they'll really launch in June. I would expect maybe by November they might be able to launch. Yep. You got to add in a little Elon time there. But then they put out this tweet and you see the employees quote tweeting it saying, you guys don't think we're going to launch in June? Think again. So when you have employees, when you have the people who are actually working on this stuff saying that they're reaffirming the June timeline, you do get a little more confident. Now, I don't know if they're going to be using Cybercabs or not, or if they just brought them, but I would expect that definitely Model Y. You have to have Model Y for rides that are more than 2 people. So new Model Y, that I think is a given. In terms of the Cybercab, they already have a decent number of prototypes. So I would expect them to start phasing more Cybercabs in, especially as the system's proven. But just based on their statements, if they're going to be starting volume production in 2026, which is 6 months after the start of the service, they're going to have enough prototype units that they can start getting some of them out there. You don't need to necessarily wait for volume production. I mean, Waymo only has less than 2,000 cars nationwide.
Wow.
So with a few number of, cars, you can really, I think, fill out that service in Austin. So I think we'll see Model Y and them introducing more and more Cybercabs over time. By the end of 2026, I would expect the majority of rides in the Austin rideshare service are going to be using the Cybercab.
Yeah. And I think the other piece that sort of reconfirms something else, I guess, is the one consistent trend with Tesla. When they start putting a car prototype on the roads for the first time, Model Y, Cybertruck, Cybercab, once you see them on the road and people are like, yo, that's a Cybercab, usually within 6 months, that thing starts production, like official production. That's been the trend I've been noticing, right? So the fact that we're getting this these things from the employees, we'll see if it actually comes to fruition in June. But if it does, then if you're a Tesla fan, when you have other random people seeing a Tesla car on the road, like, oh my God, they're testing this. It's like, looks like it's driving around. Within 6 months, that thing is probably going to start hitting production, which is pretty good.
Go ahead.
No, please.
No, I was going to say Lars, the VP of vehicle engineering at Tesla, he did say a couple of weeks ago that like mass production of the Cybercab would start in early 26. I think a lot of people were expecting like second half of 26. So it's coming.
Okay, where the hell are these Cybercabs going without a steering wheel and pedal? Can somebody please answer this question for me? I'm going back to my original prediction, not the joystick one, the one before the joystick.
Yeah.
These things will have steering wheels and pedals. They will have steering wheels and pedals because Tesla's going to be able to get away with these do not have steering wheels and pedals. And then they'll come out with a version in June. See, we told you. And then by January, going to be like, okay, we don't have a place to put these. These have steering wheels and pedals now. See, it's okay. They can get away with it. Where are you going to put these Cybercabs?
I mean, I guess
like
it's
legit,
possible with steer-by-wire. You wouldn't need a physical connection, but I don't know. I don't know.
And then you already have drive-by-wire and brake-by-wire. So where are you going to put these Cybercabs? If you're going to start a volume production of Cybercab by early 2026, and you're probably going to be building 2 to 3 million of these per year by the end of 2026, where are you putting these Cybercabs?
I mean, I think you can just deploy them in Austin, right? I think all the initial production can probably go to Austin and other cities they're going to launch. I mean, honestly, when I drive around in my car with 1328, the steering wheel is starting to feel kind of useless. Sometimes I'll get in the car, push a button, it'll pull out of the parking spot, drive on city streets, drive on highways, park in the destination, park in the parking spot at the destination, and I just get out of the car. So in terms of the more affordable vehicles, maybe they will have manual controls. I would expect them to. But for initial Cybercab production, a few thousand units, they can absorb that, I think, for internal use, not necessarily even selling it to customers and just put it into use for their rideshare service. And I don't think that Austin is going to be the only city either. Let's not forget the news from last week. They're already filing permits in California. I think places like Arizona and other places that already have a regulatory infrastructure in place are going to be next.
So can we do a very quick math exercise? Again, I agree with you, but something doesn't add up here. So, let's do a grok thing, Evan, if you don't mind. How many cars are on the road at any given time in Austin, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Orlando? Let's just do those 4. Okay. And then what do you guys think volume production means from a units perspective for Cybercab? 5,000 a week, 10,000 a week? What's that number?
Like once it's reached its max, it's more than that. I think it's upwards of like 2 million a year.
Okay. Oh, but let's say it starts volume production in 26. What do you think volume, like we're going to start volume production in 26. It's going to start at probably 5,000, right?
Yeah.
5,000 per week, something like that. Okay. So Evan, here we go. So in Austin, there is 800,000 registered, but how many are on the road at any given time, like driving around?
You can see underneath it gives the estimate 160 to 270,000 on Austin's roads at any given time.
Perfect. So let's take 200,000 as a middle ground. In San Fran is about 100,000. That's 300,000. LA is probably much bigger. Let's say 750. So 1 million cars on the road. And then Orlando is, say, 100,000. So let's say about 1 million cars on the road at any given time, right? Tesla's going to reach that by the middle of next year. They're going to reach the total number of cars on the road at any given time in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Austin, and Orlando. Okay.
That's they can get production goes well, though. I don't know if they're going to scale that quickly.
Sawyer, bro, come on. Cybertruck production went well. It went very well.
This is a whole new process. You never know what might go wrong, though. I know it's supposed to be super simplified.
I'm telling you, something's up. The math doesn't add up.
So you're saying there's going to be 1 million Cybercabs on the road by like within 6 months of starting production?
They're going to have the production for 1 million cars per year by the middle of next year for Cybercab, for sure.
Capacity or
late?
Well,
okay.
Capacity. I mean, okay. I think when I think when Elon talks about, 2 million a year, he's probably talking about, about 3 factories.
Yeah.
So I would say Austin is probably going to be maybe about, 600,000 a year or so, 600, 700,000 for the first phase. They're not going to ramp up immediately, right? You have to remember with the unbox process, they say this is a game changer, but it's very different than how they've ever made a car before. There's probably going to be challenges. It's going to take time to ramp. I think they could start as early as, the end of this year, early next year. It's going to be low volume production. It'll take probably, 12 to 18 months to really ramp up to the full capacity of the line. And then somewhere in there, they'll start adding other factories. So I think Austin is not the beginning and end, right? We're kind of thinking about this in a Waymo frame of mind where they don't add new cities that often. And, for example, they announced Washington, D.C. They said, we're going to start Washington, D.C. in 2026 next year. I think Tesla has much more aggressive plans for scaling their rideshare service. And with the production that's coming out of Austin, they'll be consuming all of those for quite some time. My hope for 2026 would be that we actually start seeing them sell to customers. If you could actually sell one for $25,000 to $30,000, well, then it's not really your problem what people do with it. They could do it for personal use, for rideshare, and you don't really have to worry about it.
So even if it's just Austin at say 600,000 units per year by the end of 26, early 27, you're still going to reach a maximum capacity, near maximum capacity of cars on the road right now in those cities that I mentioned. And of course, you can spread them out into other cities, but that requires other cities have to come on very, very quickly, or we're going to have some sort of federal framework, right? And so by the time you reach that volume production, you're cranking out that many cities total cars on the road per year. So you're not going to stop making them. You're going to keep making them. So either they're working on this gigantic deal behind the scenes with the Trump administration, with Europe, with China, where they're getting guidance that says, yo, by 2026, we got you. We got you. You can operate these basically anywhere you want. Because otherwise, my fear is they're going to have nowhere to put these cars. They're going to have, because they're just going to be way oversaturated because the limiting factor is going to be the approval of the technology to be able to self-drive. You guys can call me crazy if you want. The math, like for me, the math doesn't add up.
It is pretty cool to think about that. Like a Cybercab in Austin, Texas is just going to roll off the production line and it's just going to be out in the world. You can just send it. Okay, buddy, like do your thing.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I think you may be overthinking it a little bit. If there isn't a need to produce more cars, then they simply won't produce more cars. Like, okay, if there's Cybercabs all over the place and they're filling the roads and they're coming off the line. Oh my God, where do we put them?
They're going to leave a factory idle. They're going to leave a factory idle.
They make about 1.2 million Model Ys a year, and there seems to still be space on the road for more. So I think the issue will be more, can we ramp up faster rather than, we have excess supply? And I think Elon's also got good insight into the regulatory side of things as well, and what national self-driving legislation is going to look like.
Farzad, do you think we could see kind of like massive parking structures start to be built in tandem with production so that there is somewhere to put something?
That would be completely counterintuitive. Yeah. No,
well,
you would want these.
I guess what you're saying, because Omar's saying, hey, there's 1.2 million, but people are parking those at home, right? Like they have places to put them. This is a whole different world.
On average, in a city, like 25% of a city is taken up by parking space. Like the point is to get to fill that with actual useful, like either green space or buildings, and then you can just like park these things outside of the city somehow. You just send them off so they're out of the way, out of sight.
Yeah. And the other thing you're also adding on top of that is each Cybercab unit is really going to replace 5 gas cars too, like from a usability perspective. So when you're thinking about those 4 cities, about 1 million cars on the road at any given time, you really, if they were all Cybercabs, it would be closer to 250,000 or something, because, you still got to account for the 10% that are not just 2 people, right? So it'd be 250,000 or something. But even then, again, my point still stands. If you really can do the same amount of volume with those Cybercabs, you only need 250,000 cars to do the same amount of traveling from point A to point B for those people. And then by the end of 27 or by the end of 26, that would be less than half a year's production.
Well, if you think about what the Cybercab is, a $25,000 Tesla that drives itself. If you can actually deliver that product, I don't think that demand is going to be the problem. I think supply is actually going to be the problem. Now, if you're saying, well, I don't believe that that's actually going to be legal, I think that is debatable. How fast does the regulatory side move? Clearly, Austin is on board. I think there are going to be other cities that are on board. But if the regulatory side isn't ready, then you probably don't produce enough. If the regulatory side is there, then the constraint is 100% going to be supply, I believe, and not demand.
I agree, but where I'm having an issue is I again, unless something's happening behind the scenes that I'm not aware of, my fear is that the regulatory, not even fear, my observation is that the regulatory, I would be shocked if the regulatory allows for the demand to open up. I'm viewing the regulatory. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that concerned about it. If you just look at the existing state regulation, so they've got a sign off now from Texas on launching in Texas. So you do Austin, you do Houston, you do San Antonio, you do other areas of Texas. They're already in the permitting process for California. Los Angeles, second biggest city in the country. You've got San Francisco, you've got San Diego, then Arizona. There are actually a number of states that have an existing regulatory process. And if we have a national framework, well, then game over. I think the right thing to do here is be prepared to supply hundreds of thousands, if not millions of units to the market. There's no need to make cars if there isn't a demand for them for regulatory reasons or otherwise. But I think they're gearing up to be pretty aggressive here.
It's going to be fascinating to whatever, and I completely see where you're coming from. I think the end result here is whatever they decide to do, they're going to put a shit ton of cars on the road.
I think the fact that Waymo has been going around for a little while is going to help Tesla in that like regulators and local, officials won't be as nervous about it. Like the technology is sort of already out there. Of course, Tesla will take it to another level, but I think if the technology works, I think things will be fine.
I think that's a good point on it. Two quick other topics I want to touch on while we're here today. This is one that was all over the timeline. I just want to get your guys' thoughts. Was the Cybertruck recall? And I know a lot of times the media says recall and it's just an over-the-air update. And it's not quite that, but it seemed like maybe it's a little bit different here for the Cybertrucks. And Omar, obviously you own one. So I was just curious if you saw that in your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small number of units that they've shipped, so I don't think it's going to break the bank. I've got a Cybertruck. There's no issue with it. Nothing's falling off the truck. So, these things always get a ton of attention. What they don't tell you is look at some of the legacy auto manufacturers like Ford. At the same time, they've got recalls for things like the brakes not working, the engine not working, the seatbelt's not working. This is pretty minor. The only reason it's really getting attention is that people are looking for an excuse to dunk on Tesla, dunk on Elon. And so they like to laugh about this recall. And they can laugh if they want, but I would just recommend taking a test drive. It really is just such a phenomenal vehicle in every way. The steer-by-wire, the comfort, the FSD. I haven't really had any problems at all with it.
Cool.
They're really being proactive here, I think, in doing this. And it's not something that I've really had much of an issue with at all.
Yeah, I'll just say on that real quick. Tesla's over-the-air software updates recalls in U.S. last year affected about 5.1 million vehicles. And, a lot of vehicles receive multiple over-the-air recalls, so they're counted more than once. But the amount of Tesla vehicles that actually required a service center visit, a physical recall, was only about 39,000 vehicles, which is 0.77% of the total. So this narrative that Teslas have all kinds of recalls and they're horribly unreliable and dangerous is just straight up media narrative.
Yeah. And Larry Goldberg did a whole video about this, which would entail some sort of warranty recall expense. And when we look at the financials, you can very easily see that the out-of-pocket expense for Tesla to actually repair vehicles that are either recalled or warranty repairs or whatever is basically nothing. It's almost nothing, right? And the more important part here is that no other automaker has ever had a recall ever. It's only Tesla, right? Definitely don't look up any other automakers' recalls. Not Ford, not Toyota, nobody. Tesla's the only one. This is a fact.
Yep.
Indeed, this is the truth. Okay, and then the last piece here is the FBI Tesla task force creation. I just find this, it's so funny to me that, well, first off, there's some not funny parts. Stop defacing people's cars. But if you're going to pick a car to deface, why are you picking the only brand that has cameras built in to the cars? like this guy, absolute legend, ramming the four-wheeler.
The funny story about that one is, so he rammed into that car and then he was just driving around the city on that little thing. And he was ramming into other Teslas. And so people were calling the police. And then the police car just was driving by him. And the dude was just on his little four-wheeler on the sidewalk, just going down. And then he pretended he used a fake name, pretended like it never happened. And now he's in jail while they investigate. But yeah, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. What happened to shame? Like, people are like doing this. I think they're knowing they're on camera.
I don't think they do. I think a lot of people that are vandalizing Teslas have no clue that there's 7 cameras on these vehicles. I think a lot of these people that are vandalizing wouldn't have done the vandalism had they known that Sentry Mode is watching them. That's just a lack of education. I think.
Do you guys have any fear for your cars, like just like parking out on the road and stuff?
Me personally, I mean, I'm a father now, so there's like a 0.1% of me that's like, okay, like I'm slightly, but then I'm also like, okay, if I live my life like that, I don't live in America. I live in some sort of hellhole, shithole I don't want to live in, right? And so I'm not going to allow that to. And again, if you look at the total number of people that have Teslas and how much vandalism there is, it's non-existent. It's just social media is very good at bringing it forward. And of course, the attacks on the service centers, that's a newsworthy one. You can't go to a service center and set cars on fire. That's insane. That's actually legitimate. Like, I would argue terrorism, domestic terrorism, right? So, but outside of those things, it's just politics breaks people's brains. We're in a very divisive time. I do think that what the administration is doing is the right thing to do. I think it's, listen, like these are obviously, a lot of them are politically motivated. Most of them are just, a huge majority of it is just angry people doing really dumb things. And then they are being punished for it, which is how the law should work, right? So, it is what it is. It will pass. I mean, when I was talking to somebody about this, when, they were talking about something similar happening when people had like the Bush 2 stickers on their car, when Bush was elected in 2000 or 2004. And then the same thing would happen. Like, your car would just get vandalized. If you had a Trump thing, your car would get vandalized. If you had a MAGA hat in 2016, you would get cursed at. We just live in a freaking weird time. We live in a weird time.
And there's clearly there's no discretion, because obviously, right, these are Teslas. These are supposed to be the, more left-leaning cars on the road, kind of technically, right? From a perspective. I remember back during the, riots a couple of years ago, there were people that were going around and they were just slapping the MAGA stickers on a bunch of people's cars just to see, like, oh, are people going to have any type of discretion? So yeah, I agree with you guys. It is getting a little crazy.
It's very likely that the people, if these are a lot of liberals that are keying and vandalizing these Teslas, it's very likely that they're keying cars of people that actually probably politically align with them. So really, you're just damaging cars of people your own party.
Same person.
How does that make sense? And it's not like people are encouraging others to sell your Teslas. Tesla already has that person's money. You're just selling it to another person. And what, you're going to go key them too? Like, it's just never ending. It's stupid.
Yeah, I mean, this is really a campaign of fear. There's 7 million Teslas in the world. You can't destroy all of them. Even if you vandalize 10,000 Teslas, you're talking about a fraction of 1%, and 99% of Tesla owners are going to be unaffected. So I've got 3 Teslas at my house. One of them, my Cybertruck, is parked outside. My parents drive Teslas. My family, my friends, nobody's been vandalized. I haven't seen any vandalism. I haven't seen any swastikas. I mean, based on social media, you'd think that every single Tesla driver was getting attacked, but that's just not the reality. So I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about it sometimes, but you got to live your life without fear. You got to do what's right. And I mean, I think eventually people will come to their senses. You see these people just attacking people indiscriminately, and the person is a woman in a wheelchair or, you know, somebody with kids. And it's like just shooting randomly into a crowd. You don't know who you're going to hit, who you're going to victimize. And I mean, the FBI task force, it seems like they're doing everything they can. They're catching these criminals. They're arresting them. They're prosecuting them. I do think that in time, people will come to their senses and just realize how insane this is. And although this kind of stuff is amplified in social media, I don't think it's really something an ordinary Tesla owner has to worry
It's
about.
like Warren Buffett. Sorry, go ahead.
And
I was going to say, it's
No,
like Warren
please.
Buffett says, fear is extremely contagious. And unfortunately, these vandalism videos are plastered all over mainstream media. And it's scaring the hell out of current Tesla owners, even though the risk of their car getting vandalized is in reality probably pretty small. But they've been sort of convinced that this is happening everywhere. And that if I go park out in a public parking lot, then my car is going to get keyed. So I'm hearing this fear from all types of Tesla owners, which is partly why I stopped sharing so many vandalism videos, because I was like, how realistic is that your car is going to get keyed? And then I feel like I'm just contributing to a lot of the fear. You know, 1 or 2 vandalism videos is fine, but I felt like I was sharing so many every day. I'm like, I don't care about the clicks. I'm just not going to do this as much. So,
yeah, it just tells you how good the Tesla Sentry Mode system is, that it can pick up every single instance of this happening.
Yes.
Like how many, right?
Sentry mode on always. That is the one advice I'll give people, you know. So what, it drains your battery. You want to have that clip.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, yeah, I agree. I think with enough time, all this will blow over. You know, folks will find a new thing to hate. You know, it is what it is. And again, even though it's extremely small, I understand why people are hesitant. The current owners, it will pass. But I think the undercovered story is the amount of awareness this has brought onto the Tesla name is unprecedented. You know, and so how many people will see, oh my God, what's going on with Tesla? And then they go like, okay, let me look up Tesla. And then there might be like a banner or somebody that they come across the website or something, or $2.99 per month lease. What?
these
know
acts
that.
of vandalism are in some cases convincing people that never considered buying an EV to go buy one. Wild.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the very least, it's awareness.
It's so funny. I mean, you see like U.S. Oil and Gas Association account. They're buying a Tesla. They're like,
yeah.
has hell
They
frozen
DM'd me,
over
and I was
here?
like, just buy it.
And that's kind of the thing about these attacks. They always backfire.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Always.
really started a conversation about why Tesla's so important to us, why people buy Teslas. And it's brought new people into the fold who are probably going to continue to be Tesla customers. I mean, they're the highest brand in customer loyalty. You are ultimately starting a national conversation. You're bringing new people into the brand. And sure, there may be some people who don't want to buy the brand, but I think the net effect is going to be much smaller than you'd think by listening to all the conversation people have been having this quarter.
I love Sentry Mode,
Yeah.
but I do. Sentry Mode is kind of like, it's useful for after something has already happened. I would like Tesla to work on features that would prevent something from happening in the first place. Because a lot of these people keying, I don't think they know that they're being recorded. So in that case, Sentry Mode is kind of useless until, but you have them on camera. Great. You can show that to the police. But like, should do just some sort of feature, flash the lights, honk the horn, do something right before it happens, ideally.
Or the speaker is like, hey, shitbag, what are you
just
doing?
whatever. Like,
I want an Optimus in my trunk that'll pop out and just beat the shit out of the guy. There we go.
Robot and human crime. Good luck with that one.
hilarious.
That one's gonna get weird. Yeah, it's crazy times, but I agree. I think in the end, this will actually help the brand, not hurt it, which is a wild
This
thing to
Saturday
think
should
about.
be interesting.
It's full picture,
I know
Omar.
May 20, the 9th, is it? It's supposed to be a crazy protest day. Hopefully nothing crazy happens.
Yeah, it's kind of full picture, Omar. They're showing the Optimus bot on Capitol Hill to get it into the FBI task force to protect the Teslas, right? And that's full circle. You have an FBI bot in your trunk.
The
that can
FBI
just pop
task force
out.
it's great they're doing that, but ideally, like obviously, this wouldn't even be needed in the first place. But it is what it is, I guess.
Stop committing crime.
Yeah.
I think is the
You will be made
the
a
short
famous
the
person
short story
online
here.
if you key a Tesla. These videos are being shared everywhere. People keying are losing their jobs left and right because of it. It's not a good look for you.
Yeah, it's going to hurt you, your company, your family, and maybe there's other ways to voice your disgruntledness.
Go protest.
Peaceful.
Yeah, go protest.
Peacefully.
Peaceful.
It's America. Yeah, peaceful protest. Go stand outside of the Tesla and just yell everything you want about Elon and Tesla.
Hop on X.
It. We support your right of free speech.
Right to his face. On
Go
X.
for it.
He
Exactly.
encourages it.
Make sure that you're verified so that you get the ad money.
Yeah.
Did you see that post that blew up? This girl, like, I don't know if she keyed the Tesla, but she left a photo that she left a note on the Tesla saying, like, a whole bunch of insane stuff at the owner. And then Greg quote tweeted it and was like, thanks for paying for X premium, or something like that. And the quote tweet just had like 20,000 likes on there. So yeah. Well, this is a fun one.
The real story here, though, is that Tim Waltz has called the bottom.
Yes, 225
Tim
and
Kramer.
not dropping.
Tim
Kramer.
Oh, man.
That's a good one.
It is down a
That's
little
a
bit.
good one.
That sucks. Who cares?
Yeah. We'll talk the stock another time. Really fun one today. We covered a ton, everything from the all hands meeting, which was super cool to have that public. A lot of theories around the Cybercab, Optimus, and so much more. Farzad, you got any other comments for us today?
Steering wheel and pedals, baby.
Steering wheels and pedals. Omar?
Yeah, I think steering wheels and pedals are going to start disappearing fast.
Two sides of the aisle. Sawyer?
Go live your life. Don't worry about parking out there. Put Sentry mode on. Just do your thing.
Yeah, everybody. I love what you guys said. I think it's very comforting, and a lot of people need to hear it. The statistics, the numbers, live with no fear.
Like, it'll eventually pass.
I think those are all great messages.
Yeah.
Yeah. This too shall pass. And, just like these guys said, right? Live your life, enjoy it, leave Sentry mode on, and good things will come. Thank you to everybody, as always, for listening. These have been super fun. This was a great episode. Might have to listen to this one twice. There was so much jam-packed into it. We will see you on the next one. Have a great one, everybody.
Like and subscribe.
Oh, yeah, I forgot before I wrap up. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube. We're almost at 2,000 subs. Love to see it. We had our second most popular video in the last one, so please do leave a comment. Everything helps. If you're on X, make sure that you're liking and
if you hate us, let us know. If you love us, let us know. Just comment and increase the engagement. Thank you.
Yes. Comment, or whether you like, if you're out there keying Teslas and you hate our opinions, you can comment below. I'm the one keying the Teslas. We'll definitely not report you to the FBI Tesla task force. It'll make for good times in the future. Thank you to our producer, Evan, to our editor team. Shout out Alex on the back end now as well. That's going to do it for this one, everybody. Take care. Have a good one.